the idea for the exercises would be two things. One is to review the sample data set that David reviewed during the presentation. And here you see the southwest of North Dakota. If I turn off the imagery, you can see there a little red spot there, which are the field boundaries. So I'm going to zoom in, and it will take a little bit of time to refresh. And so we're going to be reviewing some data sources to create the zones. And the idea would be to walk through these different steps, having the data sources, then normalizing the data, and then combining them. So you can have an idea of how the process would be. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. And it's taking too long, but it will eventually refresh the background imagery. Let's see if it refreshes. But the idea would be to compare or to use, for instance, Landsat NDVI data that's from July 2007. Then you have Landsat. So, and this is related with my question about the field size. This is about, I think, about 20 acres. So here you see how it relates a 30-meter pixel with that type of field. So there you see a variation in NDVI in July 2008. So you see here the range of NDVI values. And then we'll also have the data that comes from VERIS, the electrical conductivity data. And I'm going to see if it refreshes, otherwise we'll go to the next example. For some reason it's not refreshing now, but you'll have it in your data set. So basically the exercise we'll see, well, finally it's there. We'll have the actual location and data that, this will be classified. We're still doing we're going to do the combination before sending this data set to you. So you have the classification of the various data, useful ranges, and also the NDVI data, and see how they would be normalized and combined to create the zones. So that's number one. And number two, there will be also another data set that you have in week number 2. We downloaded it to review some NDVI layers. And this is very similar or the same that we're going to do with your sample fields. We're going to, in this case, for instance, you have NDVI data from June 2009. Let's see if September still shows. We usually combine 2 different years. So let's say July 2008 or July 2007. So you have different variability in different years. And then by applying the concept that they've developed, we're just going to use NDVI data in the interest of time. We could also process the yield data or electrical conductivity, or if you have elevation data taken into account in the interpretation. And the end result would be the productivity map from very low to very high based on combining those past season data layers. We're going to generate these management zones. And that will be interesting to see, to have your review and see what is the history in those fields and what are explanations for this variability. And if they relate also with the variability that you're working with in those fields, maybe you have some yield data or some other data that allows to compare this management zone. So the next step will be to create to generate those NDVI layers and to combine them for management zones layers for your fields. One last comment, and this is interesting for discussion. What we usually provide consultants or growers are these variability maps. And we tend to call them productivity maps because in many cases they show the different productivity, but maybe that's not accurate. Maybe it's more a variability than a productivity map, because especially when topography plays a role, we see that high areas may be high yield in one season or low yield in another season, and the other way around with low areas. So maybe we should name it variability maps, and we call these management zones maps after the consultant and the grower go to the field and they determine the possible causes for variation, and maybe they group 2 or 3 classes together, so maybe they'll end up having 3 classes or 3 types of management zones. So my question is if this is correct, if this would be a good approach to call it productivity or variability map when the information comes from remote sensing or other data sources, and then call it a management zones maps after it has been verified and validated by the consultant and the grower. Would that make sense?
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, and so, and we'll have an exercise also on grouping these classes. There are some tools there that you can use to group them, to create management zones, or to create a prescription map. So basically, there will be a prescription tool. Well, I'm using another computer, so I should have a data structure which will be included in which is called prescription. So I don't have that, so I cannot use it. But you can use this to group these classes into less classes and apply variable rate prescription.